Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Trudge, a journey to being recovered. My name is Dexter. I am a recovered drug addict alcoholic. I'd like to get back to the work that we've been doing. I'm a little late with the submission this week. Sorry, guys. I am very, very busy, but my commitment to this work will always be there. You can guarantee, that's a guarantee. Last week we finished the chapter called We Agnostics, and we finished up step 2. This week we're moving into steps 3 and 4 with chapter 5 and how it works. I like chapter 5 because it's very specific. It tells you how this works. To this point, we've jumped around with some points of interest that have kind of touched on different parts of how this works. We've conceded to our innermost selves with step 1 that we are addicts or alcoholics. In step 2, we've come to understanding that God is everything or He is nothing. By now, if you're using what you've learned so far and practicing, these spiritual principles in your life and understanding the points of interest, the preface, more about alcoholism, the doctor's opinion, there's a solution, you should start to be feeling different by now. I mean, I'm not here to tell anybody how their spiritual experience is supposed to come to them or work. Everyone's is different. We are clear about that. For this drug addict, for this alcoholic, by this time, I was on fire for this thing. There's no question about how I was feeling. And it just got stronger as I moved into step 3 and through step 4. So that's where we're going to start today. Chapter 5 starts on page 58. I like how it works. And a lot of this is stuff that you're going to be hearing read in most AA meetings today. So let's take a second to invite everybody to relax a little bit and have God come into this work. We do that every week with the third step prayer, which in my estimation is a Swiss Army knife of all prayers. This is on page 63. For those of you who don't know or have not, been following me from day one, and that's perfectly fine as well. For those of you who have been trudging along, it's going to be highlighted pink. Let's go ahead and take a second, invite God in, and let's get started. God, I offer myself to Thee, to build with me and to do with me as Thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do Thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help, of Thy power, Thy love, and Thy way of life. May I do Thy will always. Thank you for those of you who care to join in. Let's get started. Much to be done. Okay, page 58, chapter 5, how it works. This should already be highlighted orange for those of you who have been doing this work to this point. This is POY orange. And it says, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. The word thoroughly is circled. It's one of those buzzwords. When you thoroughly clean something, it's so clean that you could eat off it. When you thoroughly, lift weights, you're lifting heavy stuff, you're really going at it. People who live this program, we have, we rarely see people fail who do this, who don't just talk it, but walk it, who don't just work it, but live it. That's what the materialist is speaking to here, okay? And so, the path, what is the path? To this point, we talk about the path. Let's reference page XXII in reference to the path. So this is forward to the 3rd edition. We've already looked and read this over. At the bottom of page XXII, I believe it's the second paragraph, the very last sentence, where it says, the same path to recovery that was blazed by the earliest members of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is going to be highlighted orange. This is going to be referenced from page 58. So the path that they blazed and the path that we're trying to blaze now are the same path. And when you see and hear the word path in reference to this work, we're talking about one thing, guys, and one thing only, and that is the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. That is the path that they took. This is the path that we're taking, okay? So thoroughly following that path, thoroughly working these steps, and then turning around and thoroughly living these steps in all our affairs. We have never seen a person fail. Back on page 58. It says, those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. The word completely is circled. There's no half in, half out. There's no I'll do this but not do that. That's what I used to do, and I got what I got. I got half program. I never had a spiritual awakening, and I was unhappy. Okay, completely circled. This is all continuing on being orange. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. I have the word honest circled. Anytime you see the word honest in this book, circle it. You know, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, these are words that anytime you see them, they need to be circled. The book is trying to convey to you that you don't have a shot if you can't be honest with yourself. You know, you're never going to be able to be honest with somebody else if you're not honest with yourself. Okay? They are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Both those words are going to be circled. Rigorous, you know, doing it really, really well. Rigorously cleaning something. Rigorously doing something. You know, you're putting everything you have into it, okay? More honesty. That's words coming up again here. In less than a paragraph, it's going to be highlighted, circled 3 times. The chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. 3 times in one paragraph, the word honest has popped up. We're going to circle it all 3 times. If you can't be honest with yourself, you don't stand a chance. Okay. Continuing on orange, our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you was circled, have decided that you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, the word willing is going to be circled. Are you willing to go to any length to get it? Then you are ready to take certain steps. And so I never spiritually grew in this program my first 11 years because there were things I just wasn't willing to do. You know, willing to go to any lengths means just that. Now, if you want what we have, if you want what you see somebody has, you know, if they have 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and that's what you want, you know, then you're willing to do what they do to have that. If you want to be recovered, if you want happy, joyous, and free, if you want a life, you know, that is devoid of not only a substance, but behaviors and things that don't necessarily make you feel good, that you may still be in the bondage of self about, you know, then you are willing to take these steps in their entirety, not to pick and choose, hem and haw. You know, this is not a buffet. This is not, you know, a build your own plate program. You know, it's all or nothing. It tells you very clearly that half measures of L is nothing, okay? And so we're going to reference that last paragraph that was highlighted quite a few times. We're going to start with page 158. All right. So it says, on the 3rd day, this is POY orange, page 158, second paragraph. On the 3rd day, the lawyer gave his life and care and direction, his life to the care and direction of his creator, and said he was perfectly willing to do anything necessary. Okay, that's going to all be highlighted orange. The 3rd day is circled. The words perfectly willing are circled, and to do anything necessary was underlined. So again, we're talking about, are you willing to go to any lengths? You know, now, I would have ran up and down my block naked if my sponsor told me to. If she told me that that was the only way that I could stop living the way that I was living, both in and out of the rooms. Grateful she didn't tell me to do that, but I was perfectly willing to do that. You see what I mean? To be willing to do it is the key. The lawyer that we're talking about here, perfectly willing to do that. Okay, this is Bill Dotson's story. He was willing to do anything, and within 3 days, he picked up that hospital bed and left. You know, it goes on to say his wife came, scarcely daring to be hopeful, though she thought she had saw something different about her husband already. He had begun to have a spiritual experience. The word begun circled, have a spiritual experience underlined. That whole thing I just read to you guys is going to be orange. So the point that I'm trying to make is that be willing to do anything necessary. It's of paramount importance to go to any length is what we're talking about, okay? And the truth of the matter is, more times than not, I'm not going to ask you guys to do anything that I wasn't asked to do, and it's written clear-cut in our book. The book doesn't change for different people who's reading. It says the same thing for everyone. If you follow the path that was blazed by our forefathers, you're going to get the same result, but you have to be willing to put the work in. It's not enough to just work the steps. It's not enough to just be recovered. It takes work to stay that way, okay? That's what we're talking about here. And then the next reference from page 58 we're going to talk about is on page 90. This is going to be a little bit harder to find. We're looking about halfway down the page with the paragraph that says, "Sometimes it is wise to wait." Almost to the end of that paragraph, it says, "Then let his family or friend ask him if he wants to quit for good, and if he would go to any extreme to do so." This is from the chapter Working with Others. This is talking about somebody who wants to potentially be recovered, somebody that potentially wants to do this work. So I have highlighted orange if he would go to any extreme to do so, if he'd be willing to go to any extreme to do so, tying in willing to go to any length, willing to go to any extreme. If you want to be a neurosurgeon, there's certain things that you are going to have to do to get there. If you want to fly to the moon, if you want to be an astronaut, there's going to be certain things that you're going to have to do to get to that point. If you want to be recovered, it's no different. You have to be willing to go to any extremes. In this case, we're not taking out college loans, going to school for 4, 5, 6, 10 years to get there and all that. It's taking the steps in their entirety, okay? Willing to go to any lengths. Making sense to everybody? I really hope it is. So let's go ahead and go back to page 58. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be searching and to be fearless and thorough from the very start, from the door. We were looking for you to be fearless and thorough, okay? These words, we're going to go ahead and circle these words. I don't have these words circled, and they probably should be. Fearless and thorough. Not afraid and willing to do it well, okay? This is going to be highlighted orange, this next sentence, and underlined. It says, "Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely." So I have hold on circled, and I have let go circled, okay? So we're talking about the way we used to be, the things that we thought we had to do prior to having the psychic change, prior to having this spiritual awakening, okay? My old ideas included just going to a meeting every day. And while that is a good practice, I never had a spiritual awakening from doing that. I had to be willing to let go of that idea and be willing to have something grafted on an open mind before I got well. And that entailed working the steps. Some of my old ideas was feeling like I could take this step, this step, and that step, and forget the rest of the steps and have a spiritual awakening. I found out the hard way that I had to let go of those old ideas, And when the book talks about letting go of these old ideas, we're not just talking about in reference to the work. In all our affairs, the way we treat people, the way we act in certain situations, things like that. I had to be willing to kind of let all that stuff go and learn a new way of life at the hands of using these spiritual principles that are embodied in our steps in my life. And I'm grateful that I was able to let go of some of that stuff by working a solid 6 and 7 step and to grow. And today my life is absolutely much, much different than it used to be. Remember that we deal with alcohol, or remember that we deal with whatever your problem is, okay? Obviously, the single-minded focus of this work that they wrote was for alcoholics, but believe me, it is absolutely applicable if you're a drug addict, sex addict, food addict, whatever. If you're smoking bark off a tree, I don't care what it is, If it is causing you pain and you are caught up in the grips of the bondage of self, remember that we deal with that thing. Cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. Without that help, if you are an alcoholic of the hopeless variety, which entails, control and choice, not having any control and not being able to make the choice to start or stop, you're going to need some help here. And the help that we're talking about is the help of the spiritual variety. This is going to be highlighted orange. It says, "But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now." That is so important. My life, my program, prior to doing this work, there was no God. There was a God when I needed him. but it was never predicated on the power of having a spiritual awakening and spiritual principles. It was about not drinking today and not drugging today just for today, or no matter what. And while many of us come to this program wanting to stop, I stayed dry for a lot of years and didn't get well in other areas. And the 12 steps culminates with the words practicing these principles in all our affairs. It doesn't say we stop when we stop drinking. There's more to be done. Some people are happy with that. I was happy with that for a long time. But the day came where the rubber met the road and I was ready to drink again because I had nothing to fall back on. I had no foundation. My house was built from the top down. It was all about a coin and how much time I had and what cool things I could say in meetings. And I stayed very, very sick for a long, long time. It's almost a miracle that I never relapsed. It's only by God's grace that I sit before you, the viewer, today and still have the time that I have to speak of. The next sentence I have underlined: half measures avail us nothing. I have talked about half measures to death. They avail us nothing. Okay? So if I halfway study for an exam, I may get a decent grade, a halfway grade. If I halfway clean my bathroom, it'll be kind of clean. It's still going to be dirty in some areas. If you halfway do this work, you're going to get nothing. You're going to get zero. Okay? Half measures avail us nothing, and no measures avail us even less. So if you don't work any steps, you're going to get even less. If you kind of work the steps the way I did, picked, chose, hemmed, hawed, step 1, step 3, step 4, no amends, no daily maintenance, don't care about that, not helping anybody, you're gonna get squat. Okay, that's what they want us to be very clear about this. We stood at the turning point. Many of us, know what that means. Something has to happen here. That's what that implies. The next sentence is going to be highlighted pink. It says, we asked his protection and care with complete abandon. So at this point, we have opened our minds to the power of there being something out there that could help us. Okay, that's going to be highlighted pink. So we're asking that power for his protection and care with complete abandon as we take this journey on. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. Okay, now they're suggested. Let's go ahead and circle the word suggested. You don't have to do it. You don't have to. You can come into these programs and you don't have to do this. Okay? There are no have-tos. However, if you want the promises that are in this book, and if you want a way of life that's even more meaningful as each day passes, if you want to just not be dry and abstinent and devoid of a substance, there are certain things that you're going to have to do. And from that point, the suggestions, if you are willing to go to any length, they become clear-cut directions, and so for me, they're clear-cut directions. They're steps 1 through 12 that you take in an effort to go beyond the point of sobriety into full-fledged recovery. How it works is read at almost every AA meeting I've ever been to. Okay, these are the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Number 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. We've taken that step already. Number 2, came to believe a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. We've done that already. Now we're going through steps 3 and steps 4 into chapter How It Works. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. I have God as we understood him underlined because, again, my God doesn't necessarily have to be your God. It is our own conception of God. Number 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. We'll be getting to that shortly as well. Number 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Number 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. The word entirely is circled. That's one of those buzzwords. Entirely ready, totally ready, okay? All these defects of character. The word all is circled, okay? Number 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. The word humbly is going to be circled. And when we get to these later steps, we're going to be going over why all these words are being circled the way they are. Number 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. The word willing is going to be circled, and the word all is going to be circled. You notice how we're not leaving any stone unturned? It's all or nothing. You're either going to do it or you're not. Number 9, made direct amends, and the word direct is circled, to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Number 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. The word promptly is going to be circled, okay? When we find that we were wrong, we right away admit that, okay? Number 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him. The words "as we understood Him" are in italics, and we are going to go ahead and underline them. Praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. The word "only" is going to be circled, okay? Step 11, that's what we're talking about. We're looking for God's will for us and the power to do what that will is. And a lot of us, may not know what that is at this point. But I'm pretty sure most of us know what it's not. And it's not to continue on doing the things that we have been doing that brought us to the table to do this work. Okay? And 12, this is POY, orange. And this is our message. Okay? Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. Okay? That's the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's about having that personality change, that psychic change. That's what this is about. And that's highlighted orange, okay? We tried to carry this message. Tried to, okay? The word try. Let's go ahead and circle that. We try to. We can't force this on anybody who doesn't want it, but we're going to try to carry this message to alcoholics, and addicts, or whoever out there may need this. And to practice these principles in all our affairs. I have all our affairs highlighted, underlined. I'm going to go ahead and circle it too. I can't express to you folks how important it is to practice this deal in every affair in your life. If you ended up being like me, you practiced that in not drinking and drugging. But the rest of your life was in shambles. I know mine was. I cheated every 2 seconds I could. I lied. I was never forthright with anyone. I put on a different hat depending on what situation I was in. I stole. I did all these things in sobriety. I did all these things with time in this program. I'm not proud of that, but I say that to you in the hopes that maybe it could help somebody out there who's watching this, who's going through that too. Because the day came where the bondage of self around those other issues that I had almost took me back to a drink. Almost took me back to a drug. I was so miserable sober that I said, well, what's the point? I might as well be drinking and drugging. That is not what our program is about. Our program is about having a higher power in your life and living according to spiritual principles so that all your problems can be solved. So you don't have to be the bondage of self in anything in your life, not just drugs and alcohol, okay? Goes on to say, many of us exclaimed, what an order. I can't go through with it. Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. I have this next sentence highlighted orange. It says, we claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. So we're not trying to one day turn into like the Dalai Lama or the Pope. We're trying to be better today spiritually than we were yesterday. We're trying to grow spiritually. It's not, that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to practice being perfect at it, but come on now, people. Really? 2014 United States of America, it's very difficult to always be this way. Stuff happens in life. We resort to old behaviors, but the point is that we're going to do the best that we can daily to grow spiritually, okay? Next comes the A, B's, and C's. I think this is the most important part of how it works, okay? It says, our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. This whole thing could just be highlighted orange. I just put a big box around it, okay? It's just, there's no more important part of how it works, okay? A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. We were drug addicts and could not manage our own lives. We were sex addicts and could not manage our own lives. Whatever it is, okay? B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. Now, the word probably is there, okay? I have never met anybody who has been recovered without a power greater than themselves, okay? That's just been my experience. Maybe there have been. Maybe that's why the word probably is in there, okay? Or maybe they wanted to give you an out when they wrote this book. I don't know, okay? But that's been my experience. That probably no human power could have relieved my alcoholism. I did everything I possibly could, left to my own devices, to stop drinking and drugging. It just never worked. I may have done it for a time, like some of the men's stories in the chapter more about alcoholism, put together some dry time, some abstinence, some strong willpower around it, but I always went back. Okay? The word relieved, to be taken away. It just never happened on the willpower of another human being, therapist, process group, 12-step meeting, or otherwise. Never happened. C, the most important one. I'm going to go ahead and just orange this up because that's how strongly I feel about it. That God could and would if he were sought. Period. End of statement. It's like whatever you bring to God, at least the God of your own understanding in this capacity, it's telling you that you're going to get that if you're willing to put that work in. And that's been my experience in so many different things. I mean, we talked about parts of my life where these things have happened outside of drugs and alcohol. It continues to disclose more to me in areas that I could never have believed I found relief from, okay? Being convinced, and the word convinced is circled, we were at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him. So we're now at the point where we are at step 3. Being willing to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him. Making that decision to do that. Having God, your higher power, whatever it is you choose to call it, be what your life and what this program for you is predicated on, just like it was our forefathers. Just what do we mean by that, and just what do we do? This next sentence is going to be highlighted orange. And it could be also green because it's an action. I'm going to go ahead and kind of underscore the orange with some green. It says, the first requirement, the word requirement is circled, required, directive. This is what you need to do, action, is that we be convinced, there's that word convinced again, that you be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. You need to be convinced of that right off the bat to take this next step. Now, I ran my life on self-will for a long time. I made a lot of decisions. A lot of them came back to haunt me. There's no question about that. I'd say more times than not, any decision that I make in self-will is not going to be a good decision. It's just not. That's just been my experience. I don't know about your experience. This is just my story. This has been my experience. It's all I have. It says, on that basis, we are almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor. The word actor is going to be circled, who wants to run the whole show. Some of the best actors in the world are drug addicts and alcoholics, okay? Who's forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players his own way. And so what the book is trying to convey to you is, the man or the woman who is always trying to set the scene, always trying to have things done their way, do things their way, okay? It says, if his arrangements would only stay put, if people would only do as he wished, the show would be great. Everybody, including himself, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. And trying to make these arrangements, our actor, go ahead and circle the word actor, may sometimes be quite virtuous. He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. I used to think I was all those things, right? But on the other hand, he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest, and I was all those things too. But as with most humans, he is more likely to have varied traits. What usually happens? The show doesn't come off very well. He begins to think life doesn't treat him right. He decides to exert himself more. He becomes, on the next occasion, still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be. Still, the play does not suit him. Admitting that he may be somewhat at fault, he is sure that other people are more to blame. He becomes angry, indignant, self-pitying. What is his basic trouble? Is he not like a self-seeker even when trying to be kind? And that's who I used to be. Do things for the wrong reasons so I can get something in return. Always looking for something from somebody, always looking for a payoff, just never being genuine. Is he not a victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction out of happiness out of this world if he only manages it well? If I only could manage things better, I would be happy. This is what I used to think. It's just not true. It is not evident to all the rest of the players that these things are the things he wants, and do not his actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show? Is he not, even in his best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony? Our actor, the word actor circled, is self-centered, egocentric. I have self-centered and egocentric both highlighted. These are traits that most drug addicts and alcoholics may have. I definitely struggled with these for sure, as people like to call it nowadays. He is like the retired businessman who lolls in the Florida sunshine in the winter, complaining of the sad state of the nation, the minister who sighs over the sins of the 20th century, politicians and reformers who are all sure that all would be utopia if the rest of the world would only behave, the outlaw safecracker who thinks that society has wronged him, and the alcoholic who has lost all and is locked up, always wanting things my way, done my way, if only we see it my way, selfish, self-centered, okay, the root of this disease. Whatever our protestations, are not most of us concerned with ourselves or our resentments, our self-pity? This whole next paragraph is going to be highlighted orange, super important, okay? It says, selfish, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. So it's telling you the root of your issue here is the fact that you're selfish, is the fact that you're self-centered. Whatever your trouble is that you're bringing to the table today, whether it's alcohol or something else. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation, but we invariably find that at some time in the past we have made decisions based on self-will, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. That's heavy. And look at your life. Look at your decisions that you've made. How have they turned out for you? If that is something that you can relate to, just keep reading. Keep reading. It's while, we struggle with selfish and self-centeredness as being the root of this disease of alcoholism, it's important to note that this is not a selfish program. I used to hear that in meetings all the time. The truth of the matter is this is a program that's based on altruism. This is a selfless program. This is a help others program. If Bill had just kept the secret to himself and never found Bob, where would the rest of us be? Anything good is worth sharing. Giving it away, altruism. That's what this program is predicated on. There's no self-help book that you can read and come to this spiritual awakening. This is about helping others. Trust God, clean house, help others. It's a huge part of this program. Next paragraph. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. You think? They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example. The words extreme example are going to be highlighted. These are extreme examples, alcoholics, drug addicts, of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. The next sentence is going to be highlighted orange. It says, above everything, we alcoholics must, and the word must is circled, be rid of this selfishness. We must, which is circled, or it kills us. God makes that possible. The word God is circled. Again, the God of your understanding will make that possible. The next sentence is going to be underlined. It says, and there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. Okay, the whole thing is underlined. The word entirely is going to be highlighted in orange. We want that selfishness gone. Entirely gone. Not kind of gone. We don't want to hold on to that worst item in stock. If we know that selfishness and self-centeredness could kill us, why would we want to hold on to it? We want it gone. It's telling us that it seems there's no way of getting rid of that without God's aid. That's a spiritual aspect of the program. Okay? Many of us, myself included, were abstinent and selfish as hell. Okay? And if that's the root of our issues, by staying abstinent and continuing to be selfish, are we not going to sink ourselves eventually? Are we not going to go back to what we've always done? Some people, yes, some people, no. Some people slide under the cracks and stay selfish, put together quite a bit of, sobriety time, clean time. That hasn't been my experience. My experience is that my selfish and self-centeredness almost killed me in this program. Okay, almost led me to places that I never even went prior to coming to this program. Okay, many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them, even though we would have liked to. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. We had to have God's help. We had to have God's help. I have underlined, I have it highlighted, I have stars around it. We had to have help. We had no power. We had to have God's help. Okay? That was our dilemma, that lack of power from POI VIP. We had to have it. Without it, we were going nowhere. Left to my own devices, I'm only going to get so far. I can get the abstinence, but it will eventually leave me. Without having a spiritual experience, that man, that woman, more than likely will drink again. This has been the bitter experience of millions of people who have done this work and then let it go, and then just not followed it, not lived it, or not done it at all, or half measured it, or gave it no thoughts of even doing it. That's why you see so many people go back out. That's why you see people with a lot of time go back out. Misery, depression, degradation, selfish self-centeredness. You mix all these things together with an alcoholic and no spiritual experience, or an addict, no spiritual experience. The end results are never good, okay? This last paragraph. This is going to be the first action of step 3. I can't tell you guys how important the actions are, okay? Without doing the work, without putting in the action, there is going to be no result. And that's for all 12 steps. That's for the entire program. Guys, that's for life. That's for life. If I don't take the action to go to work, I'm not going to get paid. If I don't take the action to stay recovered, give back what was so freely given to me, it goes away. I don't have a cure. I get the daily reprieve of it, based on staying spiritually fit. Understand? Makes sense? Okay? So this is the how and why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. I know I was trying to play God in all my affairs. It didn't work, it says, okay? Next, we decided that in the hereafter, in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. He is the principal. We are his agents. I have "we are his agents" circled. I feel like after having this spiritual awakening, becoming recovered from this disease, it's time for me to go out there and help other people who want it. That's why I do this. It keeps me spiritually fit. I'm just doing God's work. I'm an agent. A basketball player who's good out there making, a lot of money. He got to that point because he had somebody, advocating for him. I'm out here trying to advocate for you, the man or woman who wants a spiritual experience. We are his agents. We are doing his work, okay? He is the Father and we are his children. Most good ideas are simple. And this concept was the keystone. The word keystone is going to be circled. Okay, it's the keystone of a new and triumphant arch through which we passed to freedom. So, the arch. This is what we're talking about. That door. This is almost like walking through step 3. It's like walking through that door. Okay, that arch through which we begin to be free now by turning our will, making that decision to turn our will and our lives over to a power greater than ourselves of our own conception in all our affairs. We start to now be free from these other things that plague us. I no longer lie when it's just as easy to tell the truth. I actually pay my taxes. I try not to speed. I don't do things that I'm not willing to deal with the consequences of. And moreover, I don't do things that I don't believe are God's will for me today. I don't cheat on my girlfriend. I'm a good person. I choose today to live according to what I believe my God wants for me. I don't always know what that is, but I definitely know how to tap into that source for me and wait for that answer. I know how it feels. I know what the signs are. But most of all, I know what it's not. And if I just do what it's not, more than not, I'm going to be in good shape, okay? So, we still have quite a few pages. I'm going to go ahead and go. Let's continue on. We're going to do a little bit more. So on the next page, this first paragraph is going to be highlighted yellow. Yellow is for promises. It's always important to remember, though, that there's none of this. without this. Okay, it doesn't go this, then this. It's this, then this. Work, get paid. Okay, that's how it is. Actions. So these are the third step promises, guys. We are now on step 3. The third step promises. When we sincerely took such a position, this is all highlighted yellow. All sorts of remarkable things followed. This happened to me. Okay, and you can go back and look at anything that's highlighted yellow in the book. Ask yourself, has this happened to me? If the answer is no, go and look at all the things that are highlighted this color. Ask yourself, am I doing these things? Usually there's something missing somewhere around there, okay? We had a new employer. Being all powerful, he provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves. This happened to me. I became the great I am kind of melted away. I became more interested in what else I could do for someone else. Okay, our little plans and designs. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. That's it. You know, what can I do to help somebody today? What can I do to make this world a better place to live? What can I do to be of service? Okay, that's what this program is about. This is not a self-help program. That is nonsense. This is a help others program. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, this is what we're talking about, the design for living that goes so much further than just not drinking, but being able to live in this world, okay? As we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter. We were reborn. The word reborn is going to be circled. And it speaks to the psychic change, the personality change, the spiritual experience, the spiritual awakening. You now get to unzip yourself and step out of that person that you used to be, and you now become the person that your God always intended for you to be. You know, and that's a person of faith, a person of helping others, a person that doesn't live in selfish and self-centered habits and tactics and things like that. That's a person that wants to give back. You know, giving is the new receiving. It really is. I find when I give, I receive in measures that I never possibly thought I could ever have attained left to my own devices. So that's a good place to stop. I wanted to read that. I love those third step promises. I love all the promises, you know, and I think it's really cool when I go back and look at these things, that these things have happened for me. Why? Because I've thoroughly followed this path. So next week we'll pick back up on page 63. And it just so happens to start our third step prayer, so that'll be a good jumping off point. We'll go ahead and try to finish how it works. We're going to talk a little bit about step 4. There's a lot of information in that. I might have to break it down into, another, submission. I don't know. But I strongly suggest, as always, going over the work. It doesn't make any sense, if you're just doing it with me. It's about, moreover, what you're doing when you're out there, when no one's looking. Not just when you're in meetings, but are you living this? Are you looking for people to help? Are you feeling different? Look at the yellow. Is that happening to you? If not, go back to the green. The actions are everything, Remember, if you're half measuring it, if you're kind of tiptoeing around it, if you're picking and choosing the parts that you want, this is not going to work for you. Okay, it's very important to understand that half measures avail us nothing, and no measures avail us even less. So, that's all for this week. Before I close, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to share. Some people have reached out to me this week that aren't drug addicts or alcoholics, but maybe the family members or the wives of people who have suffered this fate, and have thanked me for doing this work. And I want to tell everybody out there that while this is for people who want a spiritual way of life and want to be recovered and want help, this can be beneficial to family members or wives of addicts and alcoholics to better understand what it is that your partner is doing. While this work, it has its advantages for all. It says so. And while there are programs out there like Al-Anon and things like that, there are just wonderful programs. I don't think it could hurt to watch this. I know that any and everybody in this world can benefit from practicing the kind of spiritual principles that are embodied in the 12 steps in their lives. And so I'm very grateful to know that there are some people out there that are looking at this and that are finding it helpful. I feel like if I reached just one person, it was worth it. And to know that there are people that are, having their families, put together in a godlike way, or have a better understanding of just what it is that their husbands or wives are doing. It makes me feel good. and it makes me want to throw myself into this work even harder because somebody worked with me, in this capacity, and I'm forever grateful. And I know it is my life's mission to turn around and give this to somebody else the same way. So until next week, everyone, I hope your families are well. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're, looking forward to this work and doing more. And I really hope that you're in this book going over just what it is that I'm teaching you. Because if you don't practice it, if you don't live it, it's not going to work for you. Until next week, again, sorry about the submission being late. Life's crazy for me right now. But I hope you guys are enjoying your summer wherever you are. Namaste.